doing, y'all? Welcome to another episode of the Don't Be Pressed podcast. On the ones and twos, we got Devin and we got Morgan. We're so happy to be back with you guys.
Wow, we're here again. You see our faces. This is so weird.
The new and improved, giving me more anxiety about making sure everything is straight, okay? Because we're not just a podcast with the audio. Now we have the video, so that's fantastic.
I know. So if I'm making a facial expression, we're rolling with it.
No, we're gonna freeze frame it and then just post it everywhere. This is gonna be so funny. This is gonna be hilarious because this is how we normally talk, like literally looking at each other through Zoom. And so now y'all gonna get to see the facial expressions like we make towards each other. So this is hilarious.
Yes. So now the awkward silences that we have in there actually have some sentiment and meaning.
I'm weak. Okay, so as you guys know, like we did last season, we like to remind you of what this season is going to be about and, what like the theme of the season, so like while we're talking about things we're talking about. So obviously, if you listen to our last episode 1, then you know that this season is all about owning your stigma. A stigma being a mark of disgrace that sets a person apart from others. And so you notice like in that definition, it doesn't mean that you're the only person. It doesn't mean that no other people have this stigma. Like the biggest thing we want you to understand is that you are not alone in the stigma. This, like the whole point of a stigma is that it's just a little bit different from what society defines as normal. So we want to talk about how we've owned those stigmas in our lives and how y'all can own y'all stigmas.
Yes, and we have plenty to go through this season. And then also, if you're just now joining us newly on the YouTube channel or on one of our streaming platforms or anywhere else, Instagram, wherever, we are the Don't Be Pressed podcast, and we talk about things that we're pressed about, daily things being pressed about as two young Black millennial women, just living our lives.
All the intersectionalities.
Yes, there's a lot of levels. So everyone can relate to it. Everybody can get something out of it. And so if you like that, then go ahead and subscribe right now. No one's stopping you. It's free.
Go ahead and leave a review as well.
Yeah, let us know what you think. Let us know if there's topics you want us to talk about.
Please.
Because we love that.
Well, without further ado, I'm going to introduce the topic and then we're going to have our ad break. So this topic that we're talking about today is, I would say, pertinent to me because I'm a member of the community that we were speaking of. We were talking about how to own your gayness.
That own your gayness.
Literally, like how do you own this thing that's so far askew from what normal is? So we're going to get into that after the break. So don't touch that app.
Don't touch that app.
We'll be right back.
If the pandemic didn't already teach you this, then we are about to remind you again. Small businesses are everything. And every season, we look forward to promoting new small businesses that we come across that we feel our listeners will love. If you'd like to sign up to be featured during one of our ad spots, and you have a small business, podcast, beats, makeup line, beauty line, anything, then head over to our website to sign up. We love to promote you.
I'm screaming. So, first of all, we want to establish that the stigma is the stigma and that it's a real thing, and we want to validate people's feelings. That's what we did last episode. That's what we want to do this episode. That's what we're going to do throughout the season. We are going to validate why this is a thing. Why do people feel so far away from normal? So
basically, kind of going off of last week, we're going to have a similar format where we will go into the stigmas, talk about them, talk about what we see, and then we're going to talk about how we can own them, because we don't just want to like come on here and complain about how crappy the world can be sometimes. We want to figure out how we can live with it, and still, fight the stigmas and be happy being who we are. So, Morgan, please, as a member of the community, you don't have to speak on the community, but do please speak on your own experiences. What stigmas do you feel or do you see as a part of the LGBTQ plus community?
I think that the first stigma that you see, like even if you're not a part of the community, we talked about this last season, is like the idea that there is a specific way that you're supposed to dress, or like that your voice is supposed to sound like, based off of like the anatomy that you were biologically born with, right? So for example, like last season we talked about like, okay, I was born, with female sexual organs, right? But because I was born with those female sexual organs, I'm not supposed to shop in the section of the store that has the baggy clothes or the gym shoes or the chains or the ties and the suits and stuff of that nature, because those things don't apply to me because I do not have a male sexual organ, right? So that's one of the biggest things that comes to mind. And then as well, like, and it works the opposite way too, right? So like if a male has a high pitched voice, or they feel like, hey, you're talking like a girl, like there's a specific way that girls talk, who like who assigned these roles, like, so I feel like that's definitely one of the stigmas. Like there's also the stigma of for people who are bisexual, right, that you just want to sleep around and you just want to like you just want to get your freak on. I feel like I've heard that so many times, like you just like you wear your freak flag literally on your shoulder telling everybody that you're bisexual, when that is in fact not the case, or that if you're bisexual you have to choose one because everybody chooses one eventually. And so those are like some stigmas that like really 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 come to mind. Oh, my favorite, destroying the black household. That one I absolutely adore. um that the LGBT community and LGBTQ people, those who belong to the community, are destroying black families.
Yes. Gonna unpack what you said a little bit
Okay.
because I think you had some really good points. The first thing I do want to comment on is one of the stigmas that I see all the time, or is like this level of femininity and level of masculinity that is supposed to be tied to how, quote unquote, how gay you are, like as if it's like a sliding radar that like, oh well, he's more gay so he's going to be super girly.
Mm-hmm.
That's like a stigma I see all the time. And then like there's this also like aura around men who are gay, like, and people just view them as being soft.
Yep.
People view them as being like weak, or like gonna wear short shorts, or the super flamboyant gay who's like out and screaming and just happy to live his life, which he should be, but that is not, again, like the radar of how gay you are. That is their personality. Because there's a difference between somebody just being their personality and being outspoken versus somebody who's shy. And there are people in the community who are both. And that's like a big stigma that I see.
Yes.
I guess, do you kind of want to talk about like how you like to dress and like?
Oh well, we talked about this a little bit last season, and it's so funny because Devin's like, well, I like to wear that too. I shop in the men's section too. Well, for me, um, I really enjoy the idea of not having labels. For one, that is like one of the biggest things for me. So that was imperative, like deciding that, you know, I'm not really gonna embrace labels. Like the person that I'm gonna date is the person that I'm gonna date, and the person and the clothes that I'm wearing is the clothes that I'm wearing. Like whether I have to search men's or women's, like that's because like the manufacturer organized them that way. That's not any indication of who I am, right? So for me, like for my graduation, I hope you guys saw the pics. I wore a tan linen male suit with a tie and everything, and I had
Don't Get the shoes.
Oh yeah, yes, and the dress shoes, dress type shoes. And so you know, you go ahead and check out that photo. But
self promo.
I mean, look, I had a lot of reassurance with my style choices, but I feel like I was like I chose what I wanted to. I chose the direction that I wanted to go with the outfit, and so um I got questions, right? Like even my family got questions, like what's going on with Morgan? Because it was the first time that people had seen me in
I didn't know that.
in clothes that you can't like really pass off as, oh, Morgan's like she's just sporty, so she's just wearing shorts. And I posted on Facebook, so like all the people from like way back are like, well, when did this happen? What's going on with Morgan? And it's just like, for one, that's not for my family to have to explain. It's not for me to have to explain, and you really shouldn't be asking about it, because what are you asking about it for?
And then also, like, what are you asking? Like, are you asking if she's gay? Like, because that could just be you finding your style.
Yeah, it could. It like the way that you dress does not have to.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be linked to your sexuality whatsoever.
Right.
Like in a lot of cases, I would say it is, but it doesn't have to be. And for you to make that assumption, also borders on ignorance, right?
On the tightrope, on the line. So moving right along, we talked about like the outward appearance, but I also want to talk about the LGBTQ plus community in terms of mental health, because I saw a study, and I'm going to link it below, and it was a Yale study. So, we come with the facts only. But they said that the population of the people that they studied who were in the community versus those who were not had a higher rate of depression, anxiety, and general mental health issues. And then when you layer on also being a part of the community and also being Black, then it's just like, it's a little bit heavier load.
I was reading something as well. I believe it was on that Change account on Instagram, that LGBTQ individuals are more likely to be homeless. Like teenagers are more likely to be homeless. And that makes up so much of the homeless teenager like population, like LGBTQ plus individuals, because their parents, their families, kick them out of these homes, which goes back into like when we were talking about Pose and those homes that people created, and like the fact that everybody needs a place to belong, and how crazy it was in that series that people were saying that they were pedophiles because they had children living with them, when these people have been kicked out of their homes. So, but going back to what Devin said, yeah, like you have to, everybody needs a community, and so many LGBTQ plus individuals like find that their friends is the family that they chose, right? And that means so much more to them, because it really is a blemish on the family, like whether your parents view it as that or not. Like there's going to be people in the family that's like, I don't really agree with that, or I'm not coming to the wedding, or how are you going to have kids and things like that. So but going back to your point, I don't want to skew away from your point. I will say that for me, I'm still getting my mental health together, like pretending, because I didn't come out until I was like 21 going on 22, about 22 years old, and I felt like for that whole time I was pretending, right? And when you're pretending, there's obviously the imposter syndrome that Black and brown people feel when they go into the workplace. But imagine feeling that just you can't escape it. Like there's no one that you can't escape to. And then the feeling of like, for me, people were always asking like, are you sure you're not gay? Are you sure you're not gay? And I'm like, well, I don't want to be gay because there's like something wrong with it. Like I don't ever want to like have something wrong with me. I was like I am a people pleaser, right? A perfectionist. And so that took me a long time to be like, first I had to say like, hey, there's something wrong with me that I can't fix. And I was going through that. Like, I'm just okay, like owning the fact that there's something wrong with me I can't fix. And now I'm just like, there's nothing wrong with me. Like, if you have a problem with me, then that's your problem and not a problem with me, because I'm just over here living my life and you have a problem. Like, about something that you have no idea. Like, honestly, Devin, how many conversations do you have? And this is going to segue into our next topic. How many conversations do you have with not me, your best friend, but like regular people, like your parents, friends, coworkers, about your sexual life?
Like it's very, very low. And it's like I like cannot imagine what that's like to be questioned about that all the time, where it's like that kind of like talks about like I don't the stigma around gay bars and like the how promiscuous people feel that that setting is, where most of them or most of the ones I've been in, you walk in, you don't even know it's a gay bar really until someone's like, oh, like unless you know prior. But if you were just dropped in there, like it's not like people, they're go-go dancers like just dancing on the stage and like everyone's shirtless and like no, like it's not that all the time. Like that's not like like how sexual you are is not like being gay is not like, oh, I'm so sexual with this person. Like that's just not, they're not the same. It's just like my preference is different than yours.
Exactly.
Like it's the easier way to think about it.
And like you said, like that's like a kind of a, I remember seeing that one time, and it was a specific event called Southern Decadence down in New Orleans. And so, you know, that's not the experience that I've had going to every bar. Like most of the time, like if I go to a quote unquote gay bar, it's literally like any other bar
Right.
where people are dancing and having fun. And I know straight people that are like, I'd rather go to a gay bar because there's this sense that no one is judging you. No matter what type of gay bar you go to, there's a freedom in the fact that there's nobody judging you for the way that you're dancing, which is a huge thing in black clubs, because I remember being in college, like I don't want to dance because I know niggas gonna hold me. And like there's no, yeah, there's no judgment on who you're dancing with. And there's also like you can get away from the, oh girl, come here, or oh excuse me, as they grab your waist. Like that does not happen in gay clubs, because I mean women don't really do that unless they're trying to assume that role, I guess. And men are, right, and men are, the men they are interested in men, so you're just not experiencing that. So I mean, I agree. Like it's just like it's not the stereotype that a lot of people want to talk about. And also, like you said, like the fact that I can go to work and people, and I'm like, yeah, my girlfriend and I, and people are like, wait, well, how many guys did you date? How long did you know you were gay? Like, how long did you know you were straight? How many times have you inserted your male organ into a female sexual organ? Like, you know, like how,
It's a weird, like, yeah.
like
I made that face because it's weird that people are asking about that at all. Like, unless I know you and like we're just having it like friends, like girl talk, whatever, kiki. That's different than people at work. No, like that is, you are crossing the boundary. No.
definitely. And but I tell you what, one thing that like we talk about, like how, well, we're gonna talk about how we owned it later, so I'll go into how I own that situation. But yeah, definitely, people are weird. That's how I feel.
Another thing that like makes me kind of angry, or I guess it kind of creates another stigma, is this like, I ain't gay no more, I've been delivered, pray that gayness away. And we talked about this, I was gonna say a little bit, but we talked about it a lot in the spiritual journey episode that we did in season 6, which I will, all these things that we're referencing also, by the way, will be linked down below if you want to get more in detail with them. But we talked about them, and I just wanted to, I don't know if you wanted to touch on that, or I don't know if anyone has actually like explicitly said that to you, but I have heard somebody explicitly say, oh no, we got to pray that away.
No, yeah, I definitely heard that. Like I remember being 12 years old, like trying to say that, hey, something's not right. Like, I know that I'm not supposed to feel like this. And I knew as a kid, when I would hear the sermons or hear people talk about being gay, I felt it. I feel like more than someone who's not gay would feel it, right? Like, I felt like, okay, this is a sin that I definitely need to be aware of. But I always kept it inside because I never wanted anybody to know that there was anything wrong with me, right?
Right.
So I've definitely heard it, and I smiled when you started talking about it because it's the story that I tell people all the time about when I first started to question life, just everything that I had been told as a whole. Because this whole pray the gay away thing, right? There was a class freshman year. It was called Gender, Sexuality, and Technology. And
This is in college?
yes, in college.
Okay.
And we that would be a heck of a class, even for
Yeah, I
country.
was like, wait, I didn't take that.
Yeah, and my mom, I remember when I took it, my mom was like, "Are you sure you're still pre-med?" And I'm like, "Yeah, like this is the humanities class for pre-med, like science majors in this science specific honors college." And so we love the freaking train.
It's like a prerequisite.
Yeah, it's a
You have
prereq.
to take.
Yeah, so in the class, like we watched this documentary, right? And these kids, they were talking about how they went to these camps where they were supposed to be like supposedly getting the gay out of them, and they were praying the gay away, and they would use these honestly torture tactics, like a lot of them painful, to make sure that the child no longer could get off to, or the kid, well, it's really a child because no adult is being forced to go to that. The child could no longer get off to the homosexual, like, things that they were showing them, right? So it could be homosexual porn, or it could be like just like a guy with a naked shirt on, like, oh, did that make, I'm, I don't know, this, we just gonna put an E on this, right? Did that make you hard or whatever? And so many of the participants were like, at the end of the day, I was never straight. I learned how to pretend to be straight to get out of there. And at that point, when you're in a society where you're trying to get somebody to be so normal that you're torturing them and terrorizing them. And this is a religion that's watching this, right? Like that's putting this on. So how can you call yourself a positive religion doing that? A. And how is it that it's something wrong with me that you are so, and I'm going to say threatened by me, that you feel the need to use torture tactics in this setting to get it out of me? Not only that, persecute me in the streets by beating me up, trying to kill me. If you see me, if I act too gay, I'm killed. If you catch me kind of out of a gay club with no one else, you kill me. Or, it's hard for me to get a job because I'm too gay. And that still goes on today, even though they have the stipulations when you get hired. We do not, we're not prejudiced against gender, sexuality, the whole little thing. So that's how I feel about it. I don't know one gay person who hasn't heard that.
That's crazy because
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know one person, gay or straight. Now, I just wanted to correct that. Who hasn't heard that?
yeah. And there's like a lot of those torture tactics with like so many different levels of being part of the Black community as well. And then like you describing those camps also just, it kind of like seemed like a replica of what they used to do to people who had mental health issues before that was normalized. So like to think that they saw that and then saw being gay as like a mental issue almost, like it just seemed.
Bro, it was in the DSM-MV.
Yeah, see.
As a psychological issue that people had.
Right.
Especially transgender. That was definitely in there.
Yeah. And one thing that I've just come to sit with in terms of the pray it away with this topic and like most other ones is that people would say that too, is just like we can't get comfortable picking and choosing what we want to use from the Bible to discriminate somebody else. Like, this one thing is weighing on you so heavily, and you're ignoring a lot of the other things. Like, for example, judge not. Like, regardless, like, that is like, if anybody knows anything, you're not supposed to judge. So, like, you can have this belief and you can question it and you can whatever, but that doesn't give you the right to go judge somebody, to go bully somebody, to go beat somebody up, to go be discriminatory.
Well said. I agree.
So now we're going to, transition over into how we can own the stigma as parts of the community and as allies to the community.
Yeah. So for me, like, and I'll talk about the different facets in which I started to own it. First, I would say spirituality, because I feel like a lot of gay people like are, driven away from being spiritual in any way, whether that's religious or just spiritual, because they feel like there's no place in that realm for them because they are a black mark. Or even if they don't feel like they are internally a black mark, they're like, well, they didn't mess with me, so why would I mess with them? And that's real, and I get that. And so for me, I just had to come to the conclusion of the relationship that me and my God has, and the relationship that we've always had. I've always had a very strong, close relationship with God, even when I felt like I was more religious in a system of religion as opposed to a spiritual connection. And that's what I enjoyed most about it, was the spiritual connection of talking to my God and, going like, divulging my innermost secrets and, my innermost fears, and getting peace through talking it out and tapping into that. And so I determined for myself that, hey, if I die and, it's judgment day and God says, my daughter, you did a lot of great things, but this one I can't forgive. You being gay, I can't forgive. I can live with that. I can die with that. Like, that's something that I've reconciled, that I'm okay with, because I refuse to live this life unhappy. Because as far as I know, this is the only one I get. So I refuse to live this one unhappy, in fear of what may happen when it's over. Mm-hmm. Because if I'm looking around, I don't know too many people that's going to heaven. If we count sins.
And that's exactly what I was saying before, where it's like we're out here picking and choosing what we want to use.
Well, you live in constant sin, don't you?
And that's why we have to be grateful and thankful. That's why we celebrate Easter.
Yeah, like
we recognize that happens, or like if you do, like I'm saying.
Yeah. No, I got you.
But like that's like the point of that. So like you coming out with this like just bullyish, rude, like energy and aura so strongly just doesn't make sense to me. It's like inconsistent.
I what is the word? Like, I promote for everybody. If you're being harassed, okay, now this is a whole different thing. Yeah, stop harassing.
Somebody coming, yeah, exactly. No, I guess I would say from my perspective, to own the stigma is to be aware of the stigmas that are out there, which you took the right step by listening to this podcast episode if you got this far. One. Mm-hmm. Two, like, and then like no one's asking you as an ally to speak for the community. You don't have to be like the most knowledgeable person of how somebody else feels. Everybody doesn't feel the same anyway, so there's no point in trying to like perfect that, because I know a lot of people struggle with that. Like people who are generally trying to help feel like they can't because they don't know enough. You knowing that bullying somebody else is wrong is enough. And then I'll just like leave it at that. Because I mean we have a bullying episode also, so.
Right. And another thing that I feel like helps is when people like they repurpose certain words that were meant to be derogatory, right? So black people, they take the N word, they take the ER off, they make nigga, right? It's a term of endearment between people. It's a whole argument over whether that should be allowed or not, mainly because white people feel like they should be able to use it for whatever reason. And so I feel like that was being gay too. Like that's one of the things that I've recently learned. Like and I was telling you this the other day, me be like, yeah, some gay shit. Like, yeah, I can say that because I am completely like when I say that, I mean exactly what I say, and there's nothing wrong with it because it has been a phrase used to denigrate people. And no, I'm going to use it as a positive thing, and that's part of owning it too. So when people try to be like, "Well, you should say this," no, I'm owning it. I'm owning the fact that you use this to call me a derogatory name, and I'm owning it in my own way. And you don't get to tell me how I get to own it. But yes, we are on all platforms. If you're watching this and you're watching this on YouTube, we felt like it would give you guys, we talked about this last episode, but we felt like this would give you guys a different view of us, like a more personal view as you get to see like how we interact with each other. Especially since Devin and I are in different states. If you listen to the podcast, and you know that we are still on all of our streaming platforms for the podcast. Devin, let people know what those are.
You sure you don't want to? You sure? I'm kidding. Apple. Now Siri's about to tell us. We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, Buzzsprout, Alexa.
Anywhere you listen to your favorite podcast, we'll be there.
Anywhere. You can find
We'll be there. And follow us on all platforms. We have a Pinterest. We create different Pinterest boards for episode links, mental health, LGBTQ topics, Black History Month, like you name it. We have a Pinterest board for it. Our merch is on there as well, and included in that merch is ebooks and things to help you get through like tough times. And yeah, so follow us on all the things. Twitter be popping because we hilarious.
Leave a comment down below to introduce yourself. Also, if you're new, we want to say hey.
Nevertheless, don't be pressed. Deuces.